Hi, my name is Kimberly Hill Knott, and I am the Director of Political Relations at Perfecting Church. And we are so glad to have you here today at our Candidates Forum. And with that, I would like to introduce the founder. Winans.
Well, how are you? And thank you, Kim. It is very important that we, as citizens of the United States and those of us that are in the faith community, that we have candidates that will represent what our core values are. This is a very polarized time in American history, and so where does the church stand? Where does our faith, what matters to us as believers, and also those of us that are in the African American community, we need to have candidates that will go to Washington, that will go to the city hall and fulfill the wishes of their constituencies, not trying to own them, not trying to make them something that they are not, but we need to be represented. And I want to thank all of the candidates that have given of their time, and want to thank Miss Mildred Gaddis for giving of her time and talent. And thank you, Kimberly, for making all of this happen. Hopefully, we will be wiser. We will feel in our spirit that this is the candidate that is going to serve our interests as a community. We may not ever agree on everything, but we need someone that will stand up for principles that are dear to us and not be afraid to take on those that try to own and frighten them. So I want to thank all of you. Uh, I think my purpose has been served, and I will give it back to Miss Kimberly Hill Knott.
So, our moderator for this evening, and first of all, thank you, Pastor Winans, and thank you just so much for your willingness and openness to allow us to have these type of very important events that really educate. The community about the issues that we're confronted with, and it's so important our you know residents have the information that they need so that they can be educated voters and not just
Yes,
polls
yes.
and name recognition only, which has really been a detriment to our community. So the our MC or moderator for this evening is Mildred Gaddis. And many of you know Mildred Gaddis. Mildred Gaddis is actually on my department. She is a member of Perfecting Church. And I'll give you just a little bit of information about her. She is a 46-year broadcast journalist. Time magazine has called her one of the most politically astute minds in Southeast Michigan. She hosts the Mildred Gaddis Show, airing Monday mornings on WDMK 105.9 FM from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. And so let us welcome Mildred Gaddis. And before you hear from her, we're just going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about the purpose of this event and rules of engagement. And so the purpose of this event, again, is to really educate the community about political issues. And so Perfecting Church has been hosting candidate forums for many years now. And I think we just keep getting better and better. And of course, COVID forced us to really use technology in a way not before. And I love it. I love virtual forums because it allows so many other people to be able to participate, and we know that that's important. The more people who are aware, the more educated voters we have, and of course, you can go out and share information with your network, and that is certainly something that we want you to do today. So, just a few housekeeping rules. There is a chat box both in Facebook. are on Facebook and in YouTube, and we want you to put your questions there. So as Mildred is interviewing the candidates and you are hearing their responses, be additional questions that you have. At the near the end of the forum, we are actually going to have a Q&A, and we're going to hear from the audience, which is so important for the candidates to be able to hear the concerns of their constituents. In addition to that, we're also going to have a resource page, and we're going to drop um, different resources in the chat box, and that's going to be done by attorney Ryan Williams and Tawania Hartman. And so one will be focusing on Facebook, the other one on YouTube. And so again, just there will be a call for Q&A, and when that time comes, and even before then, as you're hearing the candidates make their comments and respond to the questions, please put your questions in the chat box because we want to hear from you. And with that, we are actually a little early. So it is 6:09. We have a timed agenda, so there may be a little lapse in time, but you will hear from Mildred Gaddis, who will talk about the 12th Congressional District and the 13th Congressional District. Mildred.
Thank you very much. First of all, it is my pleasure to serve as a moderator this evening. And I thought, and I don't want to mess with the order of things. I thought that we would have a prayer coming from Bishop Marvin Winans, or will that be later in the program?
That is correct. Pastor Winans.
Well, I tell you what, Kimberly, as we get ready for that, I just want to say a few things about tonight's forum. It's important that people understand that it is a forum and it is not a debate. They are not one and the same. And therefore, it's going to be important for our candidates to respond to the questions that are asked of them. There will be later in the program, when people have the opportunity to ask their particular questions, other issues will come up. So I wanted them to know that. Our candidates will come alphabetically. And we're talking about alphabetically according to their surname. I'm sure everybody knows that as a result of the redistricting of the state of Michigan, that new lines have been drawn. And that means that some people who were formerly in the 13th congressional district may find themselves now in the 12th districts. And so they're concerned about that race and vice versa. So we're going to talk about some of what this means moving forward and what these candidates, what their commitments are. What are they saying? And it's important for our listeners and our viewers to watch and listen very, very closely. One of the unfortunate realities about campaign time is that people make promises, and sometimes they sincerely mean what they say, and they get to Washington and they find out that the game is a different game and unlike any they've ever been involved or engaged in before. So I want you to listen closely to what all of the candidates have to say. And as has been stated prior to my coming on, an informed voter is indeed the best voter. And our goal here tonight is to hopefully get you to understand more and to learn more about each of these individuals who are asking you. What they're really asking you to do is to make a contract with them. And of course, as we move past the election, the mandate for the voters will be to hold them accountable for that contract. Your vote is your contract, and don't ever give it to anybody and just walk away from it once you hand it to them. You need to follow what they're doing. You need to support what they do that is good, and you're entitled to critique that which is bad. So I'm looking forward to it. Is Bishop Winans with us, Kimberly, for the prayer?
No, I'm actually going to do the prayer. He is gone, and then we should have our people on very
Okay.
soon. All righty. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. Dear Jesus, we thank you for who you are. We thank you so much for just allowing us to the opportunity to gather today and to hear from these candidates, dear Lord. And we ask that this is just a smooth process, dear Lord, that the listening audience is able to get all of the information or pertinent information that is needed for them to make an educated decision, dear Lord. And so we just ask that you give us wisdom as we are voting, so that we vote in the right candidate, dear Lord, who has the right vision and who will do the work that is needed to move both of their respective districts forward. And in your precious name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. So we begin. The clock starts ticking. Kimberly?
Yes.
Okay, right. Good enough. This first segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the 12th congressional district, and this segment will be 10 minutes long. We have two. I got to tell you this: the candidates who are here this evening are the ones who answered the surveys and honored the request and decided they would be a part of this. All of the candidates were invited. And the ones you see here this evening are the ones who agreed to come and participate. And as I said earlier, they will come in alphabetical order. The two candidates showing up who are asking for your vote in the 12th Congressional District are Lathrop Village Mayor Kelly Garrett and Detroit City Clerk Janice Winfrey. And I want to say good evening to both of you. And we have 10 minutes, so let's get started. Miss Garrett, you are the mayor of Lathrop Village, which has a constituency of about 4,000, according to the 2020 census, 4,008 individuals. A small city, but a city yet the same. And small cities, medium-sized cities, and large cities all have their unique likenesses, if you will, if that's the word, in terms of what makes them what they are. Some of the challenges are similar, and then there are instances when they are not similar, depending on the kind of town or city that it is in. What is it, in your experience as mayor of Lathrop Village, that has prepared you for this congressional seat?
Well, thank you for having me, Ms. Gaddis. I appreciate being here, and I really do look forward to this. The one thing that I bring to the table as a sitting mayor of a city is that basically all the protocols for a city are the same, regardless of the size of the constituents. So, what I bring to the table is I do have the experience of intergovernmental relationships, meaning as I work with the county on a regular basis, I work with other cities to make sure that we lower our costs. So we have cost sharing when it comes to certain things. Like, for example, we partner with Berkeley Police Department to handle our the prisoners, and we also partner with the Southfield Dispatch, so we don't have to take that on for ourselves. And we, of course, we partner with Oakland County. In addition to that, I work with the utilities to ensure that all of our residents are taken care of whenever there's a power outage, whenever there's any type of issues that's going on within the city. I am able to reach the people that need to be reached and talk to regarding getting our power and any type of utility situations back on. So the power of my current seat is the fact is that I have the working relationships with, like I said, different organizations and also the intergovernmental, not to mention working with Republicans and working with Democrats to ensure that we can get things done in an amicable fashion.
One of the things you just mentioned is the need for people to be able to work with other people, whether they're people who are like them or if they're unlike them. The mission is much greater than any individual. We have seen a tremendous partisan posture in the nation's capital, unlike we've seen before over the last several years. How do you work You're a newbie, if you will, a rookie in Washington. How do you navigate your way through what exists now? I think most Americans agree that there has to be some change. There has to be some civility. There is a need for Republicans and Democrats to come together on issues that are pertinent to the entire nation. We've seen a lot of that. We've not seen a lot of that where people are putting the country ahead of themselves and ahead of their individual parties. So what do? You're there. You're coming from Michigan. You're the new kid on the block. What do you do to try to navigate that way and try to make something like that possible?
That's a good question. One thing that I am good at is forging new relationships, and that is making sure that I introduce myself to people both sides of the aisle. One thing that I can say when it comes to Lathrop Village and its vast history is that, just like what you said, not everyone is going to like you. Never, everyone is not going to agree with your policies, and you need to come to some type of agreement for the good of the cause. And one thing that I stand on is the fact that I can negotiate and I know how to work with other people, regardless of if we see eye to eye on certain issues. So again, that would be more or less, being introduced, going to Washington right after the primary to be introduced to other Congress people, to other senators. I would hope that, even if it's not the current Congresswoman that gets through the primary, that I would be able to partner with her and my Congresswoman, Brenda Lawrence right now, to partner with her to be introduced to key players that are in Washington, along with other people that I know that are politically astute and have connections in Washington. So it's about forming those relationships. It's about you are absolutely right when it becomes that we have to do something that is for the good of the people and not for particularly one or the other party, because I do believe with you that has been a major issue in our current government. So I think it's relationship building, like I said, and it's also making sure that we are in place. Whomever gets to be Congresswoman, they're in place for the people, not for themselves, not for an individual agenda. And I believe that I'm the person that has that. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Our next candidate, Ms. Janice Winfrey, is Detroit City Clerk. She served the city for more than a decade. Prior to her win, she was a math teacher in the Detroit public school system. She's a graduate of Eastern Michigan University. Ms. Garrett, I apologize. I will come back and give them your educational credentials, okay? So forgive me. I'll be back to do that. Clerk Winfrey, you've been down this road before. I believe it was in 2017? You challenged Congressman John Conyers at the time. So this is not new terrain for you. What makes this race this time around different than it was then? Ms. Winfrey? Okay, I think she's back with us. Ms. Winfrey? She's on the screen for sure.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Okay, I can hear you now.
I can't hear you all. And
you can't?
Okay,
You're having some technical challenges. Let's see if it connects at this time. While we're waiting for that to complete its circle there, I need to share with you that Mayor Garrett has a bachelor's degree from Rochester University and a master's from Phoenix University. I neglected to share that initially, so please forgive me. Okay, let's see. This segment is all. Oh gosh, let's see if we can get Ms. Winfrey connected. I don't know what's happening there. Unsure, but we certainly want to provide equal time here. There are moments that technology delivers for us, and there are other times that it just want to mess with us. City Clerk, are you're back with us now?
I'm back with us. Let's pray that it stays. It doesn't kick me off. I
I know.
apologize profusely.
I know. I said that this is not new terrain for you. You've been down this road before. You ran against the late Congressman John Conyers. What makes this run this time any different? And I asked that question because you're running against several candidates, but one happens to be an incumbent. So what makes this run different? I know we've got, besides new district lines, okay, I know that, but what else?
That's it. That's what makes it different. The new municipalities that I'm so looking forward to serving. But she is not an incumbent. This is a new district. And so although she is a sitting member of Congress, she's not an incumbent for this particular district, as it's a new district. That's what's exciting for me. I've identified a vision for this new 12th congressional district that I'm excited to share. Can you all hear me? Okay, good. So what makes this race different? We have an opportunity now to serve a portion of Oakland County as well as Wayne County. And what makes it exciting for me is that we have the same pool of money that we'll be pulling from to service Franklin, Michigan, as we will serve Inkster, Michigan. That same pool, those same resources, now that we will be able to share with Beverly Hills and Westland and Redford and Detroit. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the opportunity to create a whole new vision. I see myself connecting the 12 municipalities together through one street, and that street is Telegraph. Telegraph touches every last one of those municipalities except for two, Beverly Hills and Lathrop Village. But other than that, it touches them. So we have a great opportunity to do some real development there and some real transit opportunities there. So I'm excited.
What is the racial makeup of that area, of the 12th district?
It's very much like the country in which we live in, the world in which we live in. There is about, I would say, if you combine the entire 12 municipalities, it's probably 50% African American, maybe 30% Caucasian, maybe 20% Arabic and other. That's just my guess. That's not real demographics.
That's good enough. We get the picture. I'm surprised that it's approximately 50% of Black Americans. I didn't know that. But I want to talk with you a minute here about the man who came to town and said he was bringing $1 million for your campaign. Who is he and who does he represent?
It's a group called the Urban Empowerment PAC. And the Urban, Bakari Sellers is the young man that you speak of. And the Urban Empowerment PAC is a group of African Americans, leaders, as well as Jewish leaders. And they're leaders, they're civic, political, and business leaders. And what they're doing is they're identifying candidates that they feel can win a particular race in an area that is of importance to them.
I'm going to break the rules here and add a little more time to this segment. So I'm going to ask each one of you another question. Is okay?
Okay.
Mayor Kelly Garrett, when you look around this metropolitan area and you look at these newly drawn lines, what excites you about the way that the lines have been drawn here in the 12th Congressional District?
What excites me is the diversity of it. One thing that I am grateful for is that the way that I have been, the way that I grew up was always diverse. Between the friendships, between the schools that I went to learn about different people. That's what really excites me. Also, it excites me to use some of the same thought processes that I had for the city of Lathrop Village to other cities, Just for example, when it was popular just to say, let's get the roads fixed, I am doing that. Me and my colleagues did come to a conclusion that it was needed to get our roads fixed. And unfortunately, it did have to go through a millage to get that done, opposed to getting money from the federal government. And learning about the different cities that's within the district, I noticed that they too have the same issue that's going on, of trying to get their roads repaired without going through a millage. And so being their congressperson, it would be where I'm able to bring money, or try to bring money back to those particular cities and help them get their infrastructure, I shouldn't just say roads fixed. So it excites me to be able to be a part of a turnaround for each individual city. Also, the diversity is really, I have to say, that's something that really, really excites me. And it's also the fact of forging the gap between the haves and the have-nots, for, so to speak, the haves, the have-nots, and just being a conduit of making sure that each person gets their own piece of the pie, or each city gets their piece of the pie from the federal government.
Thank you so much. Ms. Winfrey, you get to Washington. What's job one?
Oh, good question. I'm learning my job. So I have a plan that I put into action as a candidate. And that plan is speaking to every last one of the mayors, town supervisors, and the like of the 12 municipalities that I'll be serving, and asking them, the question for me was not, will you support me? But the question for me was, how can I help you? What do you see are the needs, the pressing needs of your community? And what would you like your representative in Congress to do? And with that information, I plan on putting together a 100-day plan, my first term. And then as I execute my job, I will be checking off that plan. That plan will be based a little different for every municipality. That plan will be based on what those leaders, those stakeholders have shared that those needs are in that community. And I want to check them off one by one. That's my 100-day plan.
I want to thank, we are out of time now. I want to thank both of you, Mayor Kelly Garrett of Lathrop Village, Detroit City Clerk Janice Winfrey, and we'll see you all on Election Day. Thanks so much for participating.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. You're more than welcome. Coming up next here on the Perfecting Church Political Forum this evening, we're going to talk with the candidates who have agreed to participate from the 13th Congressional District. Let me just share those names with you quickly. John Conyers III, Adam Ollier, Portia Roberson, and Sri Tanadar. And as I said earlier, we were going to go alphabetically, and that's what we're going to do. John Conyers III is running for election for the 13th Congressional District. His professional experience includes working as a hedge fund manager. He has also shared that he is an entrepreneur, and he wants to go to Washington. So we're going to talk with him. Are you there? Is Mr. Conyers III with us? Kimberly Nothill. We can't hear you, ma'am.
Hi. Okay. He is not with us right now, but we will get him on. He's being tracked down right now.
Okay. I want to encourage everybody who's joined us this evening to begin to formulate some of your questions that you have. Next is, and I think everybody has been mispronouncing this man's name wrong. It looks like the H is silent once the TV spots hit the air. We're not hearing that H, so I'm guilty too. I called him Hollier, but it's Ollier. Obviously, he is a member of the Michigan State Senate. He is a former military man, born here in the city of Detroit, and he wants to go to Washington to represent the people who live in the 13th Congressional District. Good evening, Mr. Ollier.
How are you doing, Mildred?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for joining us this evening. There is a big issue that's causing, just stirring up mess across this country. And it has to do with the ruling of the U.S. Supreme Court recently concerning a woman's right to choose, a woman's right to decide what she wants to do with her body, when she wants to do it. And it's more than abortion, but abortion is a part of that as well. We're going to see that battle heat up here in Michigan, and I'm sure you know, as a state senator, that that battle has already begun. Where do you stand on the abortion, reproductive rights, a woman's right to choose? Where are you on this issue?
I think every person who could become pregnant should have the complete control and agency on whether or not they become pregnant or stay pregnant. It's critically important that men speak up and talk about this issue, because too often we let the idea that a woman's issue is a woman's issue not be a man's issue. Men are the one that are trying to regulate women's bodies and women's choices, and the same thing would never happen to a man. It's completely unacceptable. I'm disgusted by the way the Supreme Court has acted in this way, and it's going to have huge implications for families, for people, and all across the state. I am very committed to continuing to do everything I can to ensure that a woman has the right to choose when and if she will be pregnant.
You're a guy, you're a man. Why, from your perspective, why is it that men aren't processing this issue? We know that the people who are against it and opposed it for years have made it strictly about abortion. But why is it that men don't get the whole picture here? And I say that, I was talking with some men the other day, and I asked him, I said, if someone snatched your 8-year-old daughter who was walking home from school and abused her, and in the process of that impregnated your 8-year-old child, how do you respond to that? And his response was, this is concerning an 8-year-old girl, that he would want an 8-year-old child to carry that to term. You know, that an 8-year-old's body is not prepared for that. So why is it that men are having such difficulty understanding this entire package?
I can't understand. It certainly is not an issue for me. I'm a father. I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I would never, ever, ever in the world be thinking this the way that he was thinking about a situation. God forbid it never happens to my daughter. But when I was in college, someone talked to me about women's issues, and we often frame women's issues like violence against women, like abortion, like childcare as women's issues. They're men's issues. If men stop raping women, we wouldn't have this issue. If men stop doing this, we would not have this issue. And so men have a responsibility first and foremost as we talk about that moment where we say it is unacceptable to commit violence against women. Because the reality is 1 in 3 women has been raped, has been sexually assaulted, and has had to make this decision. But even more than just the decision about whether or not to have an abortion, this is life-saving healthcare. And when my daughter was coming into this world, my wife was wheeled out of the room, and the doctor said to me that I had to start to think about which one of them we were going to save, because it was touch and go for both of them. And that is not a decision that anyone should be wanting to do lightly. But under the Supreme Court case and in Michigan and our 1931 law, it is not a decision that a father or mother could make anymore. And you could be in a situation where you literally lose both because doctors aren't allowed to make the kind of healthcare decisions that are necessary. It's absolutely unacceptable, which is why, as a man, I have been very vocal about the importance of fixing this.
Now, I know we're talking about the congressional seat. You can go to most cities, many cities in this country, and the person or the persons who are Congress people and, whether they're in the House or in the Senate, tend to have a tremendous impact on what the state party does. I don't know what's going on in Michigan, but if you talk to people, just regular people who try to watch what happens in political America, they get the feeling that that's not existing in Michigan because they don't see movement from the state party. For whatever reason, that's their perspective. And we all know that perception is reality for most of us. What role should the congressperson have? Do you go to Washington and just stay there and do the work? and not come back and get energized and to get in this party to do what it should be doing?
Absolutely not. I live in this district. I've lived in the 13th congressional district my entire life. I've lived in the same neighborhood basically my entire life. I live a whopping 2 blocks from the house my parents raised me in. I'm very committed to this community. I got into this race because I'm committed to raising my family here. This is not about going to DC and just making an impact there. Impact needs to be made, seen, felt, and heard in the city of Detroit. Because people need to know that their lives are getting better. And that means that as a party, Democrats are making Detroiters' lives exponentially better. And that has not always been the case, but it's something I'm fully committed to doing.
You've been on the campaign trail before.
I have.
You haven't been on this one, but you've been on the campaign trail before. And, during campaign time, people get a whole lot of promises. But, they do. And, and I contend that some of them phenomenal sales jobs, and some of them really believe that they're going to be able to do what they say that they're going to do. Mm-hmm. And they get busy and get caught up in the fray, and we don't see that happening. How do you stay connected?
Well, one, I think it's about being grounded and honest about what you can and can't do. I was raised in a household where when you say you were going to do something, you have to do it. And that's because my dad was a firefighter, mom was a social worker, right? Like I grew up in a household where the profession really meant something. And when I ran for the Senate, I said that I was going to work on things like auto insurance reform, on cost of living issues, on making a difference and bringing the dollars back. And those are all things that I've done. Right. So when you look back at my record, I'm the only Detroit representative or senator that has gotten a bill signed into law every year that I've served. And that's with a Republican Senate and a Republican House. So when we talk about what it means to make promises, I make commitments about things that I can do and have been very committed to getting those things done, delivering on getting things funded in the city of Detroit, like the Goodwill Flip the Script program, getting money for Focus Hope and the Motown Museum, all things that I talked about doing and have done. And that's what you should expect from your member of Congress. Someone who isn't just going to talk about things, but has a record of achievement and accomplishment. As people my age would say, someone with receipts.
Well, I tell you what, you and I will debate the insurance piece at another place and time. Okay.
I look forward to it. Anytime.
Okay.
I hear you have a show Sunday mornings. I would love to have that conversation with you.
Because we've seen a whole lot of tragedy since that insurance legislation changed, since the insurance laws changed. I want to thank you very much for joining us here this evening. I know that there's a lot going on, and candidates have to be in 2 places at one time, and some chose not to show up this evening. But I want to thank you on behalf of Perfecting Church that you did.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Has John Conyers III shown up yet? If not, we're going to move on to Attorney Portia Roberson.
Well, hello there.
How are you?
I think I did. I'm well.
Well, it's good. As I said, you guys have to be in all these places at one time, but I'm glad. I'm glad that we were able to get you on. People around here know you as an attorney. You've been a defense attorney. You've been a prosecuting attorney. You've been handpicked by the former president and attorney general to go to Washington and aid them in efforts. I think some of it had to do with federal legislation, just a whole bunch of stuff. And you segued, which was surprising to a lot of people, I think, over to Focus Hope. And I don't know what you've been doing over there, but I'm hearing that for the first time, it's 16 years.
It is.
Under your leadership, you guys have a balanced budget and you're debt-free or something like that?
That is absolutely correct. Something I'm extremely proud of. For 16 years, Focus Hope had debt. When I got there, we had about almost $8 million in debt. We've been able to get rid of all of that debt. So all of our funding goes directly to our programs and not to paying off old bills or old debt. We did it without laying off one person. We simply sold some real estate that we did not need. And I'm always happy to get rid of real estate rather than getting rid of people, because people are what makes Focus Hope successful. And then what we were able to do is when we got out of debt and when we were financially solid, we were able to share that with the people who've been committed to Focus Hope for years and raise the overall minimum wage to $15 an hour and make sure that we can continue to do that and sustain that going forward. So I'm extremely proud of that. And listen, Mildred, I sometimes too ask, how did I get to the nonprofit space? But I will tell you that it has given me a distinct understanding of how we match resources to the needs of the people who need it the most. So that is one of the things that I will be keen on making sure that we do when I get to Congress.
We here in the city of Detroit, and I think across Michigan, are mourning the loss of a Detroit police officer yesterday. And I don't know how laws are in other countries, but here's what I do know. I know that the gun industry and the insurance industry, their lobbyists are the most powerful there are in this country. And they have the tendency and the money to finance the campaigns of elected officials in Washington. What sense does it make? You're a former prosecutor. What sense does it make for an average citizen to be able to purchase an assault rifle and assault weapons that should only be used for people in a war?
It is probably one of the issues that I was already thinking about prior to running for Congress, and I'll tell you why. We have a Head Start, an early Head Start program at Focus Hope. I spent 2 years trying to keep those children safe by letting their parents bring them and drop them into individual rooms through our emergency doors, and sometimes even propping the doors if, in fact, if the weather was warm enough. Subsequently, after all of the mass shootings that have happened prior to COVID, and certainly in the last few weeks, we've had to change that narrative. We've had to make sure that we keep every door closed, because everyone truly believes that it will never happen to them until it does. And so your whole mindset has to shift in order to make sure you're doing everything you can, not only to keep our children safe that are in our programs, but once you enter our building in that capacity, you are throughout Focus Hope. And we've seen it time and time again what happens. I am not opposed to people who are responsible gun owners having the kind of weapons that they use to hunt. I have never seen somebody use an AK, whatever, 47, 14, whatever the number might be, on hunting. Because if you use it as you're hunting, you'll blow everything away from the bone and you won't have anything to take home with you. So there's absolutely no reason why this country is wired to believe that people should have access to those type of weapons. And when people talk to me about the Second Amendment was written at a time when you needed to have a militia ready to go in case of an attack. It was not meant that every child, teenager, adult with mental illness or other situations could get their hands on those type of weapons. And so you are absolutely right. Our city is mourning tonight because this cop, who had been on the job only 5 years, who was the son of a retired DPD officer, his family is going to miss him forever. His children are going to grow up without him because a young man had his hands on a gun that he had no business having. And I can't believe that this is the way we have decided we're going to live in this country. I just can't believe that we're going to throw up our hands and say, oh, well, there's nothing more we can do. And so I'm fully committed to making sure we go back to the drawing table and ask for more severe sanctions around people who are irresponsible and who do these straw sales on guns and let other people have weapons that they should not be able to get. And so we need to do more. It's just as simple as that. We have to do more.
What is at the top of your agenda if you make this race? What is the top of your agenda as soon as you get to Washington?
Well, listen, I'm not only the CEO of an organization that is a nonprofit based on human rights, I'm also the chair of the Michigan Civil Rights Commission. So civil rights and human rights have been part of my background for my entire life, certainly my entire professional career. It didn't just start when I decided to run for Congress. The truth of the matter is, one of the first things I think we need to do is get back on the table the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. The reality of it is we have seen, even before Roe v. Wade, which is a hugely important issue to me as well, but even before that, we saw a Supreme Court that was beginning to roll back rights that we have always thought would be in effect. And we know that, right? I worked for Eric Holder. I was involved in that first lawsuit that they came to him about because they wanted to try to roll back, or they weren't upset with him about voting rights. And we've got to make sure that Black folks in particular understand the importance of voting. I know it's hard to be engaged in this kind of climate. I know when you're thinking about gas or groceries, Who cares who your congressperson is, to be very frank with you? But this is the way we exert our own power. People should be afraid that if people are not in Congress getting it done, that they will get voted out. Because the reality of it is we don't have the same kind of economic power, or we don't utilize it in the same way as other communities. But what we can do is utilize our voting power. And we need to make sure that that voting power is as sacrosanct as any of these other rights that we so freely talk about.
What do you do to inject a different mindset? Detroiters are in an overwhelming state of hopelessness.
Mhm.
People come and say, I'm going to take care of you. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. They elect people who disappoint them. And so thousands of Detroiters have just checked out of the process. You know, they're not going to vote. And for some reason in this city, we have not made getting people to the polls a priority. We just haven't. I mean, look at what they did in Georgia. Remember when the senator was, I mean, we saw Black women get in the streets and organize mothers, organize women. I mean, they were committed to their commitment, and they were able to get people who had never voted before to vote. Why, you know, we're not seeing that kind of energy and that kind of commitment here. And as a result of that, our numbers are low, and it shouldn't be that way.
And I question whether that's strategic on the part of some current elected officials, right? Keep the numbers low and you don't have to worry about, you know, getting booted out of office. There needs to be a collective effort. One of the things about this office, this next congressional seat, is this person will, in some respects, and I don't mean this naively, play politics in terms of making sure that we have the means to get our folks to the polls, making sure they understand the importance of voting, making sure we're bringing voting and talking about how we can vote more easily for people who don't have mass transit in this city, right? Don't have mass transit in this region, who don't necessarily have a car in the driveway they can just jump in and go to the polls, who get their absentee ballots early on so they can make sure they vote. And that we make sure we have a concerted effort from the local, state, and federal level to ensure that Detroiters are voting. And as for the disengagement, I understand it. I see it all the time in the nonprofit that I run. I see it. But what I do know that I will deliver on that makes me a different candidate than everyone else is that because I've had 4 years of experience of delivering direct services, I know not only what it means to make promises and deliver to a certain extent about writing policy and legislation, but making sure that the resources that we get back into the hands of the people that need it the most and not get into the hands of people who have their own pet projects that they want to do with that money that's coming here. We have more money coming here now than we've had in a very, very long time. We've got COVID relief dollars. We've got ARPA dollars. We've got a whole host of dollars coming here. But understand that those dollars aren't necessarily translating to people who've been overtaxed, who don't have access to certain areas. And so we need to make sure that you can't divert the funding that was sent here to help those people to your own pet project.
And you know, not enough is being said about that. Not enough is being said about that. And there are a lot of Detroiters who are feeling, unless there is a repetitive drumbeat about the fact that these communities and these individuals are not being served, that they'll be bypassed again. You know, how do you say to somebody, I took your taxes illegally, I took your property, and I'm not going to make you whole? How do you say?
I don't know. And I do know, one thing I do know is that when you take somebody's property, you really create a system that does not allow for Black folks in particular, but all people, to create the kind of generational wealth that we see in other communities. The biggest way to create generational wealth in a community is for people to own a home, own some type of land. And so one of the things that you have to look at is the structural racism that is inherent in the fact that we take people's property away from them illegally because we've overcharged them and they can't keep up with the kind of taxes that are being taxed on their home. And those are the kind of things that I feel that I need to champion when I get to DC. I've got to make sure that we're not setting up a situation where we talk about helping folks get over this hump, helping folks get past this moment in time, helping folks succeed, but really aren't doing it because we're not looking at the other issues related to home ownership and other things at the local level. So the federal partners have to be real partners to the local elected officials.
Attorney Portia Roberson, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Wherever you've got to be, you're on your way, but we thank you for checking in with us because we wanted to share as much information with our viewers and our listeners as possible. So good evening and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. There was no way I was going to miss an opportunity to chat with you. So thank you so much and have a good evening.
I appreciate that. Joining us next is, and you've seen a lot about him, he is a state representative. He's a state representative. He is a scientist. He is an entrepreneur. And he is none other than Mr. Sri Thanadar. Good evening, Mr. Thanadar. How are you?
I am very good, Mildred. Good to see you. I'm excited.
It's been a very long time, hasn't it?
It has been a very long time. I think you interviewed me on the day of my gubernatorial primary at the grill.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember.
Let's talk about this race. Yes. Let's talk about one of the things, you're running a television commercial and you're calling for a ban on these assault weapons.
Yes.
Now, you know what the gun industry has been doing, how successful they've been, and probably how many politicians they own because they finance their campaigns. But how do you get that to the floor for debate?
Well, that is the issue. I think you said it right. We have too much influence of the gun lobby. Our politics is corrupted because of the special interest and the corporate money. Elections cost so much money, and a lot of the money comes from corporate donors. And now we have the politicians who have this relationship with the donors. And I see that in Lansing. People are always wondering what the donors want when they are voting on a particular bill. And that makes me very sad. But we got to, and we did had a bipartisan gun bill recently, and we can build on that. That bill is not enough, but we can build on that and get these get the illegal guns off the street, make sure that guns don't fall into the wrong hands. We have issues about mental health after the COVID pandemic. The next pandemic we are going to deal with is the mental health pandemic that we need to address. So there is a lot of issues, but nobody needs those assault type guns to protect their Second Amendment. And we got to get those. And just yesterday, as you know, we lost a brave police officer to senseless gun violence. And we see this happening all the time. We're the only country where we have this obsession with guns. And, I talk to families every day, and they're worried about their safety of their children. They're not sure if the kids are going to come home safe. And I am a grandfather, and I worry about my grandchildren. And we got to make public safety a major priority.
You find yourself in a position that very few people who want to be elected to anything find themselves in, and that is you don't have to go begging for money. You're financing your own campaign. What concerns do you have about those people who are being financed by the special interest group?
Well, their loyalty. Follow the money. Their loyalty is to the donors that give them the money. And in our race, in 13th Congressional District, outside firms from Washington, D.C. are pouring millions of dollars in this race. Some of this group actually is funded by 2 Republican billionaires. And makes you wonder, why are these Republican billionaires are playing in Detroit and Detroit's congressional race. What do they want? Why are they trying to control, our congressperson?
Are you saying, let me make sure, I want to be very clear on this. Are you saying to us that in this 13th congressional race, where there are Democrats running for the office, that there are 2 Republican billionaires who are pouring money into some of these campaigns?
One of the super PAC is funded partially by 2 Republican billionaires, and that organization called UDP has put in nearly $2 million into this race.
So whose campaigns have they whose campaigns have they donated to?
It's Adam's campaign.
Ollier?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. And you wonder, why are the outside groups funding a candidate why are these super PACs are putting this kind of money in our district? And what are they trying to achieve? They're not generous people. They must have a reason why they're putting all this serious money into this race. And this is not just about 13th district. We're seeing, donor money, special interest money, corporate PAC money everywhere. And this, a U.S. Senate race could cost as much as $100 million. And that's why I want to focus. When I get to Congress, I want to work on campaign finance reform. These elections should be publicly financed. And we should not be spending this kind of obscene amount of money in our elections.
Wow, I'm still reeling from the question. The statement you made about the 2 billionaires. I want to ask all the candidates to please stick around, because don't forget, we are going to take questions from the audience. They'll have some comments and some questions, and we'll want you all to share on that. Where does education fall on your agenda?
Very much to the top. Look, I grew up in poverty. I'm talking about abject poverty. And it was education that helped me pull myself out of poverty. And I understand I achieved my American dream, but American dream is not accessible to many people. And education is the key. So I have been a strong proponent. I served on the Appropriations Committee on the School Aid and Department of Education, and we were able to bring $1.2 billion to Detroit public schools. One of the bills that I introduced, that the governor put it into her budget request, is $94 million for Detroit literacy program. We got to give our children better education so that they can have the future that they need. So education is very, very important, and we got to make sure that we for the first time through my committee, we able to achieve per pupil equity. And this is first time it happened. We also have the biggest education budget that my committee recommended and got passed for Michigan. So I'm very, very proud of my work as a state rep, and I will continue that in the nation's capital.
Thank you very much. I want our listeners to know, we thought that we had state representative, I'm still calling her state representative, Detroit School Board member and former state representative Sherry Gay Dagnogo and John Conyers III both had confirmed. So we were preparing certainly for those 5 candidates, and the ones who we did have the opportunity to interview have been Sri Tanadar, Portia Roberson, and Adam Ollier. So now what we're going to do, we're going to give you an opportunity to ask your questions about the issues and certainly about the candidates. And some of them, Kimberly Hill Knott will let me know how many are still around. so that you all can ask your questions. Go ahead, Kimberly. Your mic is, your mic is off.
Sorry about that. We actually have State Representative Shree, we have Portia, and Adam Ollier. And I believe that they, though, are in the waiting room. And Winfrey is, Janice Winfrey is about to come back.
Okay. And what about Kelly Garrett?
And Kelly Garrett is, we're in the process of, we're in the process of getting her as well.
Okay.
Yes. So what we want to do now is just take, oh, there she is right there. We just want to give people time to put their questions in the chat box. So I'm hearing that there are none so far. And did they answer all of your questions? Were these the issues that were most pertinent to you? If not, if you have additional questions, now is the time to put your questions in the chat box. What do you want to ask these candidates? These are potential candidates who will represent you in Washington, D.C. And certainly we know all of the issues that are important issues that are confronting this nation: economic development, environmental injustice, and the list goes on. And so, very seldom do we have an opportunity to have candidates here who are willing to hear from you. So again, put your comments in the chat box, and we will, ask them to you. And we have one right here. Mildred, do you see it?
Yes. I was going to say we have one. Eleanor Watkins, I guess she doesn't know your background, wants to know, how did you get your campaign dollars, Mr. Tanadar?
I am self-funding, so I put my own money. I do not take corporate PAC money. I do not take money from the wealthy. So I am not beholden to the donor community. I'm not beholden to the corporations. And so when I go vote, I vote for my constituents.
All right. Do we have another question? People, feel free to go into the chat room and converse with the candidates. Of course, you do that by putting your question in the chat room. We want to get those questions out there, because when someone asks one question, the research shows that question is on a certain number of individuals' mind at the same time. So that's called research. But anyway, we want you to do that. We really want you to participate. This is a forum, and the best voter in the world is the informed voter. When you have the right information, I'm thoroughly convinced of this, Kimberly, when people have the right information, they will do the right thing.
Yes, very
will.
true.
They
Yes,
will.
yes, they will. And not only will they do the right thing, but they will be excited about doing the right thing. And so, and if you're excited about doing the right thing, then you're more compelled to get other people to do the right thing.
Okay. Coretta Mosley Hughes, and listen, Miss Mosley, Houge. I don't want to mispronounce that last part of your surname, so I hope I got it right. She said, I just joined, so I apologize if this question is already asked. Please, oh yeah, you came late, didn't you, girl? Please have each give us a summary of their accomplishments that have benefited the lives of residents. So, okay. We don't have a problem doing that. Let's start with Mayor Kelly Garrett. What accomplishment have you made that benefited others, the community?
Let's see where to start. What I've been telling most people is that the position that I hold right now, and I've held it for 11 years I almost said the wrong thing, Lathrop Village City Council. The 11 years I've been there, I have never been paid. So I've always had a job. one of the jobs that I had, I was on the voter protection team for the Michigan Democratic Party. I was the deputy director for that. I am also currently the state director of a nonprofit that is fighting for the rights for domestic workers across the country, which we are truly or currently trying to pass the Bill of Rights in the legislature. Also, I have been the chair of the Southfield Lathrop Democratic Club. I've been the vice chair of the Oakland County Democratic Club, and I am currently an appointee by Governor Whitmer for the Michigan Commission on Community Opportunity and Economic Outreach. In addition to those, I have been the vice chair of the Southfield Lathrop Optimist Club. I have been on my son's PTA. So I have been and I'm sorry, I've also been part of the executive committee for the 14th district. So I have been very much in the community, not just Lathrop Village, not just Oakland County, but around surrounding Oakland County also. And then when it comes to me being mayor, I made sure that we have a very diverse staff and administration. We hired the first Black female city manager. We also, under my administration, we also hired our first Arab American police officer, along with hiring the first female officer in Lathrop Village. So I, again, as I said earlier, very much support diversity, and I make sure that everything that my hand touches has a very diverse feel to it. And I am someone that gives back to my community, not just in money, but also in my time. As I said, I'm volunteering for this position for the last 11 years.
Okay. Clerk Winfrey.
Yes. I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I just got on.
And what I'd like for those wonderful people who are pulling those questions from the chat room, if you leave them up until we finish getting the answers. But I believe that question was, what have you done? What is it in your accomplishment that that you've done that have benefited the lives of others, of the residents?
Oh, that's a wonderful question, and thank you for asking it. So the team that I work with at the Department of Elections, City Clerk's office, we have been forerunners in the state of Michigan since my tenure. The first thing I did when I came aboard as clerk was I no longer send out ballot envelopes without return postage. It's very important because we were getting citizens were getting their ballots back because they didn't have enough postage on it. So I paid for postage. That helped everyone in Detroit. And as a leader, the largest municipality in the state, many municipalities that can afford to do so follow our lead. In addition to that, we opened up satellite voting. We were told that it was no way that an individual can vote before Election Day. Well, not true if I extend my office. So I extended my office about 30 times, and we now have these neighborhood satellite locations where an individual can now go in and vote their absentee ballot, depending on the election, a full 30 days prior to Election Day. In addition to that, I worked with many of the state representatives, and we lobbied with them and worked with them until we were able to get on the ballot. No reason absentee voting. That benefits everyone in the entire state. The city of Detroit, we were the forerunners and the leaders of that. We wanted that. We proved it could work, and it did work. And the people of the state of Michigan voted for that. So now throughout the state, we no longer have to have a reason for voting by absentee. Then there are the drop boxes that I was told that nobody would use and people wouldn't like them and yada yada. We have 30 drop boxes in the neighborhood so that individuals can vote their ballots and put in a drop box that has cameras on them. They're safe and secure, and they're monitored 24/7. So
cameras on them, folk. You all heard that. They have
right.
cameras on them.
And
thank you. Shri Thanadar.
Well, being a state rep for last 2 years, we passed 2 record budgets. Without raising taxes, we have had the biggest education budget each of the 2 years. But on a smaller scale, I brought 5 of us, 5 state reps together. We bought about $15 million for home repairs I bought a lot of money for community block clubs. So I gave small grants to block clubs in my district. There is $94 million a bill that I put in for Detroit literacy program. To lots of money brought in. We are going to build 5 different schools, brand new schools. We're going to put a lot of money in repairing the schools. So there is a ton of work done in the education area and mental health. I'm very, very, I've seen a family member suffer with mental illness. And so I'm very particular about increasing the mental health services that Governor Engler cut down substantially. And I fought for a $650 million for new mental health hospital, because I've talked to grandmas and I talked to parents, and when their children need psychiatric care, there is no bed available. And many a time, sometimes a kid may have to stay in the emergency room waiting for a bed to become available. Sometimes they wait as much as 20, 30 days. And that's certainly not acceptable. And we got enough money now to build psychiatric hospitals, brand new hospital, create more bed capacity. Because I served on the Health and Human Services Committee, I served on the Education Budget Committee, and I also served on the Great Lakes and Environmental, and I brought a lot of money for air monitoring, and I got a lot of money for cleanup of contaminated sites. So there's just on and on, but this has been 2 very productive years.
Thank you very much. Is Attorney Portia Roberson still with us? Okay. Felicia Garland from Facebook is asking the question. And by the way, folks, for those people who are giving us the questions, I will take a Garland's question, but the second one you put up, we've not been able to ask that. So I will go on and read this one, but would you put that one that came up second? I'd like you to put it back up so the candidates can see it. Felicia Garland asked the question, Mayor Garrett, how is your campaign being funded?
Sorry for the delay of getting off of mute. That's a great question. I am self-funded also. Not that I'm not taking contributions and donations from local citizens, but one thing that I can say is that what makes me feel good about being self-funded is because the only people that I am also beholden to is my constituents. No one else can tell me which way to vote or anything like that, except the people that are in the 12th district. But again, what I'm saying is that I am accepting donations, and most of the donations that have come in has just been from my TV ads and from people that have met me out in the district.
Well, how much is it going to take to win this race?
Well, it was said that it was going to take at least $600,000 to $1 million to win the race.
Okay. This is the second question. It's coming to us from Carmen Parker. Carmen's question is, what about the housing situation and housing becoming unaffordable to many of the constituents in the city of Detroit and surrounding areas? How do you plan to address this? And that's for each one of you, really.
Very quickly, I'd just like to say that I certainly would support legislation that would provide for affordable housing. When we put these new structures up and when we build additional housing, there should always be a component for affordable housing, especially if you're asking for tax breaks, right? So legislation to support that kind of initiative is certainly something that you can expect from me as your representative in Congress.
I mean, everybody should have a home. A nation as rich as ours, this is a fundamental human right issue, and affordable housing is very, very critical. Just the other day, I was with a tenant group, and I'm seeing a lot of issues with landlords, gentrification, landlords raising rental rates. landlord harassing people. There is a lot of that going on, and we need to make stronger laws so that renters are not discriminated, rents are not increased over a certain limit, and we need to provide more affordable housing in the Detroit area.
It's going to take partnering with different governmental entities like HUD. I know that we have something, or the federal government is working on something in Chicago and Boston and in Cleveland, and that's the boxable houses, and having those in different communities, which are affordable, smaller houses, but they're affordable. And yes, we do have to come up with some type of legislation that's going to allow grants for new homeowners, or people that are, trying to downsize, like some of our people that may be 55 or 60 years of age. Being in the community and talking to some of the residents, that's been the number one thing that I've been hearing about is affordable housing. People want their children out their houses, and and just like what the state rep said about landlords increasing their rent hand over fist, there has to be some type of legislation in place that you cannot go from, I don't know, $600 to $800 or something as broad as that. And again, having some type of grants given, something that you can apply for to get something to help you with affordable housing.
All right. This next question, politicians often say that there are so many jobs available. However, many of them do not offer a wage by which people can live off. What will you do to ensure people have a livable wage?
Well, we got to raise the minimum wage. And, I marched in Detroit for $15 an hour, but $15 is no longer a living wage with the current gas prices, current prices. So we need to raise that, but we need to create skill set. We need to give people the skills that they need for today's job and the skills that they need for tomorrow's job. And that's what we need to focus on, give the skills to people. I've seen a lot of effort where corporations are given money. Corporations that are making billions of dollars of profit are given taxpayer state money as incentives and grants and loans. But we need to invest that money in creating skills so that people can get good paying jobs and they can raise a family.
Thank you.
In addition to that, skill set is important, but also employment is important. And I don't mean employment that doesn't pay so that one can take care of their family. One way I address it is that I pay my staff. I pay them well. When Detroit said that it was going to make $15 the minimum wage, I don't know when that happened, but for me, it's been my minimum wage for a long time now, and it's not enough. We have to provide opportunity that pays. Opportunity in and of itself is not good enough. It has to be opportunity that pays a good living wage so that folk can take care of their families. The reason why we have so many job openings now, every restaurant you go into, every business you go into, be patient, we're low staff, it's because you're not paying them. We're not paying them. We're not paying them enough money. I don't have that problem. I don't have that problem because I pay my staff.
Ms. Garrett?
Thank you. That is my job currently. I'm fighting for a living wage with my job, with the domestic workers, and trying to pass legislation for that. And right now, also in the city of Lathrop Village, we have a shortage of staff. And one of the reasons that we know we have a shortage of staff is because of how much we're paying. And so we are passing legislation right now and working on putting together packages, raising salaries and making sure that our fringe benefits match, other smaller communities. So it is about doing the work, because we are doing that right now by watching the economy, making sure that people are getting the increases with the name of it is slipping my mind, but it's a percentage you get every year. I can't think of it right now, but making sure that we follow what the economy is doing. And that's something that we need to do at a federal level too. And I think that when it comes to, yes, we all were out there fighting and picketing for $15 an hour, which, believe it or not, we still are, which is unfortunate because, again, yes, it has gone higher than $15 an hour. But it's also making sure that we don't stop at that. We have to make sure that we all have living wages. I know for a fact, again, being a volunteer in this position that I'm in, is that when I'm looking for a job, there's certain levels that I have to be in to make sure that I'm able to pay my mortgage. So if that's important to me, I know it has to be important for other people too. And so that's something that has to be done legislatively to make sure that we are giving people living wages.
Thank you all very much. Attorney Richard Mack is online with us, and his question is, what specific bills have you authored or sponsored, Representative Tanadar?
Well, I have authored about around 300 bills, authored or co-sponsored. My bill that got passed in both houses and Governor Whitmer signed it into law is one that brought more money for contaminant cleanup. We have about 24,000 sites, contaminated sites across Michigan. And my bill provided the resources we need to clean up those sites. But a particular bill two bills that I co-sponsored that I'm particularly proud about is on reparations. And these bills set up a racial equity and reparation fund, about $1.5 billion. And this fund will fund and provide seed capital for aspiring entrepreneurs and help Black-owned businesses to succeed in this environment. So that's a bill that I co-sponsored that I'm very, very proud of.
The mental health issue is one that doesn't seem to go away. And this caller wants to know, what will you do to address the mental health crisis in Michigan?
Well, one of the things that we must do, and we have put enough money so schools can hire 600 counselors, psychological counselors in school. Often mental health manifests itself in a 10-year-old, 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds. So we need to address this issue early in a child's life. And right now, kids are waiting for weeks and months to get an appointment with a counselor. Many schools don't even have psychological counseling. So the funds that we generated, we provided, will help hire 600 counselors. That's a start. We need to go further. We need to restore mental health services, and we are rebuilding a mental health hospital. But there is more need to be done, because that's the next pandemic that we are going to deal with. We see that in gun violence. We see that in every aspect of our life, and mental health issues need to be addressed. And these issues have become particularly important since the COVID pandemic. And we haven't seen the impact of COVID on mental health issues. So I'm very, very concerned, and this is an area that needs to be focused on.
All right, thank you very much.
Sorry. Accessibility to mental health counseling is needed, not just at the school level, but to all people. It's expensive. And I would like to see legislation. I would like to make sure that the cities that's in the 12th district also has access to mental health, affordable mental health, or to free mental health counseling. And I would like to see that there's legislation for that. I think that people tend to shy away, especially Black people shy away from getting counseling because it has not been widely embraced as it's a need. One thing that I truly believe in, we always look out for each other, give suggestions, can have help when we have issues from the neck down, and we tend not to focus on issues that when people have issues from the neck up. And so one is to have have mental health counselors in the school, but yes, also have access to it that's affordable. And then also making sure that we have mental health resources for our police officers within the police department, because not every run, I know from, looking at the police runs here, that not every run needs an actual police officer. And sometimes it's just a dispute. It might be a bad day of someone, or it might be someone that truly needs to talk to a mental health professional. So having access is the most important thing for to combat this mental health crisis, and also having more forums about it. Having people be honest, have people there that are honest in their journey in this. And I know that we have organizations that come to Lathrop and they give those type of forums regularly.
I want to thank each of you for participating this evening. As I know that you all are supposed to be in other places, but I appreciate the value you saw in coming on the Perfecting Church Political Forum. Thank you all so much. Now let's get those folks up and get them to the polls. How about that? Let's get them to the polls, because that's going to make the difference. That's really going to make the difference.
Amen.
Again, thank you for your time. And I want to thank Perfecting Church for allowing me to moderate this forum. Thank you all so very much. Kimberly?
Thank you so much, Mildred. It was a great discussion, very informative. And to the listening audience, I hope that you were able to learn a lot and your questions were addressed and you feel a lot more comfortable about the voting process. This election is very important. We have a lot of issues, the whole issue with redistricting. And I think we must more attention to who is representing us in office. And I also want to encourage you that even though there may be people who are not able to talk to the legislator, be sure to meet their staff members, meet their chief of staff, meet their legislative director, meet the case people who work with constituent services and legislative services, because those are often the people who have the ear of the elected official. I had the honor of working in Congress for 10 years. I worked for both a Republican and a Democrat. And oftentimes it is the staff members who are able to move the needle or to introduce legislation, to talk to the member about the importance of bringing certain resources back to the community. And so that is a perfect segue, because now what we're going to have, if we're going to begin to put resources in the chat box on Facebook and on YouTube. We want to continuously look at that chat box, and we have a number of resources which range from home foreclosure prevention and different grant programs that pertain to that. I think it's called the HTAP program. We have blight complaints. If you have issues with blight in your community, there is a link that you will receive for that. Zero Waste Detroit, if you care about recycling like I do, right? All things environmental, then there will be a resource for that or information about that. Home repair loans, the Board of Review, which will allow you to appeal a decision concerning your real estate property assessments and to get clarification or classification and other assistance with those particular issues. So there are a few that we're going to drop in the box today. And we want you to just be sure to take advantage of those programs if you need them. And if you do not need them, be sure to share those resources with someone else. You know, a lot of people will ask, well, what is the purpose of the church? What does the church do? Well, this is what we do. We talk about the importance of of different programs. We service the needs of people by providing food and providing other resources, and certainly politically. And so the church plays a major role in building up and sustaining our communities. And so that is it for this evening. We want you to be sure to take your souls to the polls, and that's SOLES, to the polls on Tuesday, August 2nd. Some of you are voting absentee and may have already received your ballot. But the election is coming up in just a few weeks. And we want you to, share the information that you got today. And again, encourage people to vote. But also remember that your political activism cannot stop at the polls. You must get actively involved, meet your elected officials, and begin to develop a relationship with them so that when issues that you have do come up, or you have issues that may come up, you are able to then call your elected official and get a response and talk to someone because you have a relationship with them. And so I want you to focus on relationship building with your elected officials at the local level, which is your mayor, your city council, your township clerk, the county level, your county commissioners and your county executives, the state level, which is obviously in the state legislature, and the federal level, which is the president and the United States Congress. And so remember that all politics is local. And with that, I would like to thank the Political Relations Department for helping to put this on. And so you don't know all of the work that takes place behind the scenes, but we were working aggressively and continuously to make sure that we could make this event run as smoothly as possible, considering all of the other, some of the other issues that were going on. And so again, have a great evening and happy voting.